The safety is off. There's a round in the chamber. This is Armed Alabama. Sponsored by McCoy Outdoor Company, Mobile's hometown full-line outdoor sporting products and gear store. An interactive talk show discussing self-defense, product reviews, shooting tips, safety, and more. Your calls, comments, and texts welcome at 343-0106. Now, here are your hosts, retired judge and certified NRA instructor Rusty Johnston and certified NRA law enforcement instructor Adam Strange.
They're gonna pry these guns right out of my hands when they come to take them away. I believe in the rights that my fathers gave me when they signed the Constitution that day. No misguided president or crooked politician with a greasy pocket be spared. When the hard-working man gets tired of your cry, it's gonna rain wrath, beware. Don't tread on me, I'm American free. You're not gonna take it away. I stand up to fight for my freedoms and rights. That's the price you'll have to pay. Don't tread on me, I'm American free. Red-blooded to the core. You ain't ever had a fight in your life like the fight that you're itching for.
All right, welcome to Armed Alabama for February 16th, 2017. This is Judge Rusty Johnston along with Adam Strange, and we got a lot to cover today. One of the things we're going to cover, we have a special guest here today, and we're going to get to him in about 20 minutes, and that is Grant Gibson, former assistant attorney, district attorney for the 13th Judicial Circuit. And I'm proud to say he was worked in my courtroom for, about 2 years, and he is now a criminal defense attorney here in Mobile. He's going to give us kind of the perspective on self-defense cases from the side of a prosecutor, which will be a really great thing to hear, be interesting, because I've done it from watching a trial, seeing in that perspective, but he'll be able to talk to us, well, from both sides, being a defense lawyer and being a former prosecutor. Now, I don't think this is necessary, but I'll just go ahead and say it because he's not paying for this time. He's our guest, but the Alabama State Bar requires on ads, no representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. And our thought of the day is every Englishman ought to be concerned for the Magna Carta and laws. And if anyone against the law imprison a man, and that woman today too would apply, he is an offender against the Magna Carta. And that's from an old English case from 1710 called Queen versus Tooley. Of course, here on Armed Alabama, we talk about pistols, rifles, revolvers, shotguns, ammunition, concealed carry, personal defense training, and attacks on our Second Amendment and God-given rights to protect ourselves and our families. If you're looking for NPR's All Things Considered, you're in the wrong place. I think that's way to the left of the dial of this program. Let me mention a couple of things. Last week we talked about the ruling from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. And I've seen a lot of discussion on television since then. We have in this country what's called judicial review. And it's a tradition that the framers thought would happen. And what that means is as a result of a lawsuit, and they strictly meant it to apply to cases in federal court, but as a result of a lawsuit, if you allege that perhaps a law passed by Congress violated the Constitution, the federal court would say, yeah, we agree with you, and declare all or part of that law unconstitutional. Well, unfortunately, what's developed is what's commonly referred to as judicial supremacy. And what that means is that the Supreme Court has taken on the role of the sole, final, and ultimate arbiter of what the Constitution says. And there's an oath prescribed in the Constitution, and many people have to take it, and it has to deal with this, which is Article 6, Clause 2, the Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. That means you take an oath to the Constitution. You don't take an oath to the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Constitution. In fact, you're required to interpret the Constitution, that individual judge, individual police officer, etc. When this changed was 1958, when the U.S. Supreme Court, in a case called Cooper versus Aaron, just declared itself the final and ultimate arbiter of what the Constitution says. And that has a lot to do with what we've got going on right now with the Ninth Circuit. Adam, what have you got on your plate tonight?
We got a lot tonight, Judge. As always, we'll be talking about self-defense and firearm ammo selection, home protection, concealed carry, training, proper range etiquette, and, of course, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida law, and federal law. If you have any questions about any comments, or if you have a question regarding self-defense, concealed carry, or firearm, or what have you, be sure and give us a call, 251-343-0106, and you can text us at the same number. That's 251-343-0106. And we are broadcasting live, Judge, on our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio FM Talk 106.5. Be sure and check us out on Facebook, like it. And we're also on YouTube as well. We have an Armed Alabama channel. Make sure you like and subscribe, and that way, as we list new videos, you'll get notifications. So we put a lot of videos on there. The judge does a really good job of editing.
It's a real pain. I'll tell you, I'm about 3 weeks behind on YouTube, so bear with me.
We also put all of our previous shows on YouTube, so be sure and go there and like it, subscribe, and that way you can watch all of our content on YouTube there. And so we appreciate you listening tonight. We're also on other social media platforms. We're on Twitter as well, and soon to be on Instagram. So make sure you check us out.
And they can download the audio of the show very easily on our website, armedalabama.com, and then go to the archives page.
Correct. And if you haven't been to our website, or if you haven't been to it lately, go and check it out. It's armedalabama.com. It's a great resource. If you're looking to find out information regarding concealed carry, what your rights are, law, or a lot of information there. And be sure and go, while you're at our website, go and click on the Patreon section and contribute to our show. So every little bit helps. And with that said, talking about show monies, we actually have in the studio here, we have two individuals, Zach and Grace. They're going to be kind of canvassing the city of Mobile, approaching potential advertisers and sponsors. So we are glad to have them aboard, and we appreciate them being with us. And so look for them and give them a warm response when you see them. We know we have a lot of tremendous listeners, a lot of businesses listen to us, and so we're looking forward to bringing in new advertisers and new sponsors.
And if you see them, they're going to have a great ad package, and you'll be amazed how many people listen to this show.
Yeah, I think, Judge, you and I were shocked.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew we could do it, but, you never know.
Yeah, speaking of advertisers and sponsors, let's throw them out there real quick, and we appreciate each one. And that's David Parnell at Palmer's Toyota, Dr. Justin Foster at Foster's Chiropractic of Tillman's Corner, Grayson Heating and Air, David Grayson, McCoy Outdoors, of course, and the law office of Matt Green. If you would like to advertise your business on Armed Alabama, you can contact us. You can email me, adam@armedalabama.com, or you can contact the station, and then soon you'll be able to contact Zach and Grace. So, Judge, there's a lot going on in the news. One of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about last week was that the USS Cole is on patrol in Yemen.
Whoa.
So that was one of the things that Trump had done was sent a flotilla there to be out
I think
on patrol.
that kind of sends a message that we're not scared of you.
It does, because if you remember, the USS Cole was actually hit in Yemen, and
it was in the spring, wasn't it? I took the family to Disney World, so I just am assuming that it may not
I think it was October. I'll have to look.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So 17 sailors actually died during that original bombing.
All right, the clock man says we got to take a short break. Folks, we'll be back in about 2 minutes with more of Armed Alabama. You don't hear punk too much anymore, do you?
No, you really don't. That's a word that's kind of disappearing from the lexicon of the English language, I think.
Finish. You got the floor.
Just before we went to the break, I was talking about the USS Cole is on patrol, if you will, in Yemen, which was attacked in Yemen in October of 2000. And so I actually have kind of a little bit of a history with the Cole, which was why I brought it up. I actually worked on it during original construction and during a repair after the bombing. So it actually has a special place in my heart and the sailors that served aboard that vessel. So it's good to see it being out front, basically, if you will, on the tip of the spear.
Yeah, it is. And, the one thing I always said, and Grant knows this, that I would prefer keeping terrorists out of the country than to crack down on people's civil and constitutional rights inside the country. And it's amazing that's what Trump is just merely trying to do. And, some of these groups have vowed to file a lawsuit against everything, and what they're saying, frivolous or not, which is a violation, of course, of their attorney oath, but just to choke up the system. And that is just amazing to me. And it's also amazing that a state university has a right to stand in for someone in a foreign land that's never even been here. I mean, that is so preposterous. But, what do you do? I think I would do like Andrew Jackson did. You made your order, go out and enforce it, because we're going to enforce this one. But, the press distorts things so badly, they'd make you out as just a complete nutcase for that.
Speaking of nutcases, Judge, during the hunt for the murderers, Rice and Boyette, the number of Baldwin County pistol permits doubled during that time. Because it was at one time, I think there was thoughts that they were in Baldwin County.
That's like getting a burglar alarm after your house has been burglarized.
Absolutely.
That's really all I can say. If you want to defend yourself with a firearm, you need to buy it and get some training and defend yourself with a firearm, and not wait till somebody's roaming around with a gun.
Well, I think that shows you it's in the back of people's mind. I think maybe what do you call it, pin-up demand.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm going to get to it, but I got all these other things I'm going to do, buy groceries, so forth, so on. And it's just difficult. I think life gets in the way sometimes. And then when situations or events like that happen, now it becomes to the forefront of individuals' minds, and now they go in and get pistol permits.
That's amazing.
So there's a lot going on as far as crime this week. The shooting at Cody Road, police are still investigating that. We talked earlier about a 64-year-old was caught smuggling drugs into the jail, into the local prison there. So that was kind of
not looking that
64 years old. That's kind of odd.
I was telling, and Grant, I don't know whether it was probably before you, had an 85-year-old grandmother that was the head of a drug ring. And, everybody, she was kind of the center cog. And it was pretty big. I think the feds actually took it, but I'd signed the search warrant on it. And amazing. But, makes sense. Why not have an 85-year-old grandmother in a wheelchair? Because people won't suspect her.
Also, I was going to comment, I'm sure everybody's watching what Trump says and does, and I think that's reflective in his poll numbers where they kind of went down, but they're spiking back up to 55%, and really has jumped this past week or two And I think you would think it would be the opposite because he's been so embattled that his polls would go down, but it's been the opposite. I don't know whether you have followed they're going up.
Really what happened with Flynn, and the same thing happened when he talked to the president of Mexico and Australia. At least with Flynn, Obama or his intelligence department, they wiretapped Flynn or intercepted some kind of communications. If they did it pursuant to a FISA warrant, they have to cut out the portion of the U.S. citizen talking. Well, someone released that to the press, which is a felony, just released it. And that's how they dirtied up Flynn. And then, of course, they know very well what's on the tape. The FBI goes to him and asked the question, and as I've told y'all before, it's not illegal. You always want to try to tell the truth, but when you're asking an improper question, but it's not illegal to lie to the neighborhood police officer, but it is to a federal law enforcement officer. And so don't do that. And that's what they did to him. So they've caught him perhaps lying, but the person who intercepted or monitored him and then released it publicly, they've got 2 felonies they committed. But, of course, the media is not focusing on that. And they're not focusing on the bigger problem. Why do they have the capacity I assume they have the capacity to even listen to the president snore? And that is pretty frightening.
Speaking of the media, of those individuals that were polled, nearly half, 48% of those polls think most reporters are biased against President Trump. And only 12 think that they are biased for Trump, meaning that they are pro-Trump instead of being against him, while 31% of those polled thinks that most reporters are fair and balanced.
Those are the ones that are on heavy-duty psych medicines. Because I can't, I don't know that anybody's fair.
So that's 31%. It's 1 in 3, right?
Yeah.
Is it 1 in 3? Yeah.
At least in history, at least people are a little more honest. The political parties just owned newspapers, and they would call themselves, you still have one here, the Clark County Democrat. And they made no bones about where they stood. And that was all over the country. And, they pretend to be something that they're really not. But they're 10 times worse than I thought they were before. I mean, this is amazing.
And so much of this protest that you see is engineered. We talked at length, Judge, you and I, for the last, 6 or 8 months, ramping up to the election, of how George Soros and his groups are behind this.
Come out, and they don't even know what they're protesting.
Paying for protesters to disrupt any event or activity that they can.
Yeah, when they don't even, it used to be protesters were kind of the fanatics. I mean, if you wanted a good argument, those are the people to talk to. These people really don't know why they're there.
And half of them or more really didn't vote.
Right.
So upon interviews and stuff, time and time again, it's like, well, did you vote? Well, no, I didn't vote.
A lot of places, a marijuana conviction's a felony, and you lose your right to vote. So that may have gotten a lot of them.
Maybe in the upper Northwest. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to call in, be sure and call in and talk to us. If you have a question or comment, feel free to do so at 251-343-0106. Also, check us out on Facebook Live, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5. We are broadcasting on our Facebook page live. So go on there, check us out. Send a little message, let us know that you're listening or watching.
Even if you've had a little early times, you can still call up as long as we can understand what you're saying.
And you can also text to the same number, 251-343-0106. You can text, and we will answer your question on the air.
After we get back from the break, we're going to introduce Grant Gibson to you, and we'll take calls when he's here, but we're going to mainly try to figure out, when do the police try to charge somebody? What steps do you go through if you happen to get charged? The practical side, not just the law side, the practical side of self-defense cases. And he and I tried a few of those, and we're in one of the better states for self-defense from standpoint of what the law is. But the law's changed a little, and as I tell y'all, I'd rather teach a man to fish because you feed him for a lifetime than just give it to you. Teach you how to look up the law because it changes from time to time. And we've got one change, it's a year or two old, but I want to tell you about it. It doesn't really affect anything you should do, but it's kind of interesting. It kind of picks up with some what some other states do. I don't think it's going to help people out very much, but it might be that one case in 100 where it does. But fortunately, in this circuit, there's so few self-defense cases, that are alleged, and there are a lot of people that don't quite follow the letter of the law, like shooting at people running away and things like that, which we've talked about since 1710. You can't chase someone and shoot them. They're no longer a threat to you. When, the minute they're no longer a threat, you can't use deadly force against them. And that's something people have got to remember because your adrenaline gets going and I guess everything else, and, you're mad. But you got to resist that, especially if you're that type of person. And most people know whether they're the type person that'll chase somebody down or even worse, shoot them when they're on the ground. And, with forensics, they can tell pretty quickly how, that you stood over them like
the angle
Bernard
of the
Getz.
projectile, yeah.
And now, the guy he shot richly deserved it, but it still wasn't allowed by law. Folks, we're going to have to step into a break. 251-343-0106. That's our phone number here. 343-0106, 251 area code. And that's also the number to text in. Call or text, especially with questions regarding self-defense. We'll see you then. We're going to hire that man to be the warden. When the governor gets moved out, the new governor will hire that man. So anyway, I want to introduce to you all Grant Gibson. Grant, as I said, was worked for me as the assistant DA for a couple of years, and now he's in private business. Say hello, Grant.
Good evening, everybody.
Grant, you kind of came to our office through kind of an odd route, and I know you were in the state before that, but the best route is you were out in, was it Montana?
Montana, that's correct.
And you were a prosecutor out there, which sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah, 3.5 years I was a prosecutor out in Montana. I actually have tried cases in Florida, Montana, and now, of course, Alabama. So I've been in 3 different jurisdictions.
Wow. And the whereabouts in Montana were you?
A town called Libby, up by Canada and Idaho. Glacier National Park, that area, real beautiful, real good people, just a nice place to live if you like the outdoors.
And I'm sure you saw everything there from, drunk driving to, everything. When you're in a small place, unfortunately, you get everything, but you got to do everything.
You got to do everything. And unfortunately, crime doesn't stay away from small towns.
Yeah.
It's a problem that's in the big cities. It's a problem that exist in small towns as well. So,
yeah, I guess that's just human frailty. People are always going to do weird stuff, bad stuff, mistakes, but it's going to hit there too. And you were telling me about the drugs out there, and I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. I mean, I've always thought there were probably 4 human wants. It was food, water, sexual relations, and intoxication, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or whatever. And, you can go back and the ancients were using something to get high. So they're still doing it now.
Yeah, methamphetamine seemed to head west before it came in this direction, towards the southeast.
And it's funny, these things come in waves, because I know when I first got on the bench, that was 97, the big drug was ecstasy at that time. That was something. Of course, there's certain drugs that are just high all the time or a big use all the time, but ecstasy was really big, and then it kind of faded away. When I heard it gave you 105-degree temperature and you gritted your teeth all night, I thought, that doesn't sound too pleasant to me. But then again, I'm not dancing at the club. So, but then after that, there was something. And then meth came in, but we solved the local problem with the pill shopping. You know, with the sheriff's department, police were making sure that people didn't buy, more than their allotment of Sudafeds. Of course, we just offshored it then to the Mexican mob that are importing the high grade stuff now.
Yeah, it's my understanding there's always economic factors at play. And when I left Montana in 2008, crack cocaine was coming back in. And they hadn't had crack cocaine in our area in a long time because meth was able to price it out. But then you saw crack cocaine and heroin start trickling back in because Montana and some of those states passed the laws restricting pseudoephedrine and the products that you need to manufacture meth before those laws were passed down here, in the southeastern states.
Wow. Now, give the audience a brief overview, and then we'll get Brandon. You hang on, we'll get to you. A brief overview, and of course, anybody could read this in the books, but I want it from a prosecutor's standpoint. Somebody's involved in a self-defense or a shooting. They claim it's self-defense, but whatever decision-making process y'all go through, you decide, we don't think it is. Take me through the charging process up to the trial, just the steps that you go through.
Well, I think, my experience as a prosecutor, one thing about my experience in Montana that's different than prosecutors' experience in Alabama is the grand jury is not used in Montana. You have a right to use it, but in my county, in 3.5 years, we never used it.
Same way in Missouri.
In a lot of states, the grand jury is something that's optional, and Alabama has chosen to use the grand jury.
That's one thing that the Supreme Court has said they haven't incorporated that. They said that's not a federal right, so the states are in charge of deciding that.
That's my understanding, and some states have chosen not to. Some states have chosen to continue to use the grand jury. But so when I was doing the charging decisions, especially in Montana, our decision was the decision. There was no, you couldn't, pass it on to 18 citizens. You had to make the correct call. The biggest thing I think to look at if you're doing the charging decision correctly is you have to consider what is the admissible evidence. And you have to consider whether or not there's enough admissible evidence to reasonably get a conviction. Now, the ethical standards are probable cause. But that's the bare minimum. And if you're just charging somebody because of probable cause, then that's a mistake. You have to basically look back and say, do I have enough admissible evidence and have a reasonable chance for conviction? And so if initially you're trying to make sure you get the correct information. And law enforcement, that's their job. They're the ones who are out there, investigating, doing the interviews, doing,
that's where if you're working with a good local agency, it can just make or break you.
It's important, and obviously you want to make sure the information's accurate and you make the right choice. The other thing that you have to put in your mind is the speed in which the decision needs to be made. Obviously, if somebody you don't see them as a threat, if they remain without being charged, you can have more time to gather that information. If somebody, you kind of determine that they are dangerous, they could hurt somebody else, obviously you have to make a quicker decision. I mean, even a dangerous individual has a right to defend themselves. Everybody has a right to defend themselves.
Right.
It just depends on what their circumstances are, whether or not, you've used legal force.
Yeah. Of course, you also can't palm that decision off on a grand jury, too, when it may be a case a little political and you'd rather not make that decision. You can kind of steer a grand jury in a certain way and then let them take collective responsibility since they're anonymous, basically. But, I'm not so sure that's the gentlemanly thing to do, but it's done a lot, as you see, around the country. So either going your way or going the grand jury way, someone's charged, and then they're brought before a court, it's called circuit here, some states, who knows, but it's the general trial court, the court that tries felony cases with juries.
Okay.
And then they, of course, arraign the person, make sure they have a lawyer, and then set a date for a trial.
That's correct. And, I think most people out there probably listening to the show and most people in general want to avoid the charge itself. Sometimes you can't avoid that. You've done the action, and at the end of the day, you'll have your right to 12 jurors who will have to decide your fate. But, yes, if you have been charged, the prosecutor has decided to charge you, the grand jury has indicted you, then you will end up in circuit court and start the legal process.
That's when I can remember one of my PowerPoints. I say, it is a crime to kill anyone. It's either, murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide. There may be a affirmative defense of self-defense, and you may wind up not even being charged, but you've committed a crime, and you've just got to see whether your actions comport to the defense the state's laid out. So it's not like that, it's just obviously pretty serious to kill someone. That's why you got to get it right if possible. And I know everybody's nerves are going crazy. Let's see what Brandon has to say. Brandon, where are you calling from?
Sims, Alabama.
All right, great.
Between Sims and Citronelle.
Great, yeah. What's up?
I had a cooler stolen from me the other morning. Stole it off my hitch hauler off the back of my vehicle while we were home.
Yeah, I couldn't quite. What? Cooler. Okay, I thought you said cougar. All right. A cooler.
I'm sorry, I missed something.
That's all right.
All right. Anyway, I had this cooler stolen, and it was full of stuff. Blah blah blah. All this. Well, I always carry, and I came out. It's gone. Well, after all this happened, I got to thinking, if I had come out during the time somebody was stealing this, and, of course, I'm not just going to pull my weapon randomly. If I was going up there and saying, hey, this is my property, give me my stuff back, at that point, if they were to turn on me, it's not like I'm chasing them down. If they're to turn on me, what rights do I have to defend myself in that situation?
Sounds like Joe Horn. Well, first of all, keep in mind, pointing your gun, pulling your gun is way different than using it lethally. Somebody's committing a felony, stealing something, you have a right to a citizen's arrest, and you're not brandishing it, you're not menacing someone with a gun. So, you can pull your gun out and say, drop the goods there, put your hands up. But let's talk about using deadly force. Let's say that he's stealing your cooler, and you say, hey, drop my goods there. We're going to call the police. And he drops it, and he starts rushing you. If you perceive him to be a threat to you of deadly physical force, you can use your lethal force against him.
Okay.
Grant, do you agree with me there?
There are times where you absolutely cannot use physical force, and in that situation, I don't think they apply. They essentially are that you provoked the force, you initiated. You're the initial aggressor. In that situation, obviously, somebody is stealing your property. You can't use lethal force, of course, to get your property back, but you can use reasonable force to get your property back. At some point, does the situation turn into a situation where you are protecting yourself? That can happen. To break it down in kind of non-legal terms, there are four things to consider when whether or not force is justified. There's a subjective test, which is you believe in your mind that you have to use the force to protect yourself. But there's a catch. There's the objective test, the reasonable belief, and that is where the Monday morning quarterbacks come in. Yeah. That's where the prosecutor comes in.
I tell you, Grant and Brandon, we're up against a break. Can you hold on for us, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to have to step into a break. We'll be back at about, about 2 minutes. And remember, call in with your questions, 251-343-0106. Go to Facebook and watch us live. If you're having trouble getting us on the radio, you can go to the live streaming on the website. We'll be back in just a moment with Armed Alabama. Oh, slim pickings there. All right, Brandon, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. Grant, I'll turn it over to you. You going through some scenarios in your head and talking to me during the break.
Yeah, just kind of very, very generically, you have that objective test, and that's
Grant, maybe pull that mic out just a little bit. I can hear you, or you
Certainly.
slide up a little.
and that's the one where that's the one where ultimately it could possibly become a jury decision. That's where it's the gray area, if you will. There's also the proportionality test, and that the degree of force has to be necessary for the threat that you perceive. Okay?
The obvious one is someone's coming at you, throwing water balloons at you, and you draw on them and shoot them.
Exactly.
That's just
that's
proportional.
not proportional. And then, of course, the timing, it has to be imminent threat, which is immediate. Someone says, I'm going to come, okay, you caught me stealing your cooler. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get you. That's not an imminent threat. Under your scenario, obviously you have a gun. He's aware that you have a gun, and he's charging you.
Yeah.
Okay? There's no right answer, unfortunately, to how much force you can use, but there's common sense. And you put those factors together. I mean, you put yourself in a situation, but you haven't provoked it. You're not the aggressor.
Let's add he is, and I know you're not Brandon, but let's say he's an 85-year-old man who's on a walker, and the guy that has stealing it looks like a linebacker for some pro football team.
Exactly. So all these factors come into play, or the person charging you is a 12-year-old boy, just a small kid. You have to factor these in. But at some point, if you believe you're in danger and you're in danger of being killed or being seriously injured, and it's reasonable that is your belief, and that all these factors come into play, then you have a right to defend yourself.
Okay. Well,
That help you?
I had my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old were behind me when I come out. So, I mean, if someone were to have attacked me and me trying to stop them, I most likely would have shot them.
Yeah.
Well, you have a right to defend your children if you perceive that someone is an imminent threat to them also. But that's pretty bad. You lose a lot of beer and stuff that was in your cooler.
I had $111 worth of crawfish in there. They were draining. I was fixing to throw my dad a crawfish boil for his birthday party. So
you should have been able to track them by the juice that it let out.
Yeah, they didn't get my plug. That's the only thing I get to keep.
You got to nail stuff down in this city, don't you?
No doubt, no doubt. Okay, well, I just wanted to know sort of, there's been a rash of crime sort of going through this area, and I just wanted to know, outside my home, inside my home, I think is a little bit different than standing in my yard, and nobody's life is worth a cooler,
Yeah, depends on what's in it.
And it does make a difference. I mean, you have to feel that the force that is going to be used against you is to the degree of deadly physical force.
Yeah, readily capable of causing death or serious physical injury.
And if you're in your home, it's a different standard. If you're in your home and you're the lawful occupant of your home, and someone is in your home committing a burglary, the threat that you have to perceive, or that you do perceive, and objectively you perceive, is just physical force. But when you step outside that front door, you're leaving your home safety zone, and you're back to basically being on the street, and you have to be careful.
Okay.
Well, I
really
guess you better buy a
appreciate that.
chain for that for your new cooler.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
You better buy a chain for your better yet, a cable.
I bought one of the Master Lock cable deals.
Those are
that,
good.
The Yeti sells.
So
we're gonna see. We're gonna see how that works.
You've got to get $100 cable cutter to get through those.
Do you really?
Yeah, because I've put up a lot of cable instead of chain, and you got to. I mean, it's quite involved. So there's not a lot of people carrying those around.
Right.
So
yeah, well that's good.
Yeah. So that'll
All
do
right,
you
gentlemen,
well.
Well, I really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah, have a good one now. Appreciate the show.
All right, Judge, we got a couple of texts here. If we don't mind, we can bring those up and hopefully get a good answer. Dennis from Atmore called. If an individual forcefully enters your home and is an apparent that he is impaired, both mentally or physically or by drugs, alcohol, so do you fear for your family's safety? Is it within your legal rights to use deadly force?
Well, Grant, I'm going to throw it to you.
Again, I mean, there is no right answer because of that objective test, and that is what you reasonably believe. And so every single fact would be important. What is he doing inside your home? I mean,
There you go. Is he just confused laying on your sofa?
Yes. Is he going through your fridge? But if you believe he's going to, because it's in your home, if you believe he's going to commit a burglary and he's going to injure you.
Banging on your bedroom door.
Yeah.
That's obviously much more dangerous.
I mean, just because somebody's in your home doesn't mean you can shoot them. I mean, what obviously you're trying to avoid is the whole court process. But yes, you're definitely have an advantage over somebody who's out in the street confronting somebody because you are in your home, and I do think it makes it more objectively reasonable to use force or deadly force when someone has broken into your home. But there is no guarantee that you will not be charged and charges won't be pursued against you.
Right. I've always said, watch it because I had this happen to me, not to me, but a neighbor. Watch the drunk college kid that gets in, you've left the door open, or the Alzheimer's person. Both of those would fit into his scenario. But then again, somebody high on meth that's, crazy, that's charging you, trying to, assault you, get money, that's the other extreme, that you probably have a right to use it. But there may be many cases where they're just in there, eating out of the fridge.
Yeah. And the problem with the objective test is, if you come across an individual who's either stealing your property or inside your home, anyone who's experienced that, and I have experienced it, adrenaline is there. Oh, and you just have to be able to, rationally perceive the danger, and it's harder to do in that situation
because you always got to tell the truth. And even if you're inclined to lie, forensics will get you, or you'll eventually slip up.
And Judge, you made a great point earlier. We're talking about a different subject, but if you have used deadly force and you believe you've done so justifiably, what do you do in that situation? Because obviously, the police are going to do an investigation. Someone has been killed, and again, unfortunately, there's no right answer. The generic answer from I think most defense attorneys is say nothing.
And the problem is they represent criminals, and and technically you're not a guy that has 8 felony convictions. And
I think what's important is earlier, Judge, you said this: don't lie.
Absolutely.
If what is going to come out of your mouth is a lie, or even withholding facts, or a twisting in your favor of what happened, that's going to be used against you.
Don't talk to him then.
That's a problem.
You can't control yourself.
Use your Fifth Amendment rights. Don't talk. If you're so shooken up, you can limit to what you say because
adrenaline will cause talkativeness.
But again, when talking about from the prosecutor's point of view, how are they going to perceive the information? I mean, they're going to want to know why the shooting occurred if it's not obvious, and it may be better to get charged and be acquitted than spend, years in prison.
Right.
But it's just another split time decision that has to be made. And just again, if you're going to talk, you have to tell the truth. Otherwise, it will be used against you.
Grant, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. And remember, 911. They're an agent of the government, and you call up. Don't so-called tell 911 and say, "I'm so sorry." Start confessing to 911. Give them the facts that they need, and you're busy. I mean, you got stuff going on. You don't need to hang on the phone with 911.
And, some people have called 911 and they sound psychotic.
Yeah.
Maybe too calm. And it
can be your best evidence or your worst evidence.
That's correct. That's correct.
So,
and we talk about that in our class, and it is being able to wrap your mind around that within the class so you know what you need to do and you know how to react, you know what you need to say and what you don't need to say. And I think that's important to be able to identify yourself as the good guy right off the bat, and that starts with that 911 call.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've had an hour go by. I've told you about the time dilation that takes place in this room. But we have people that seem to get wound up after the first hour, so hopefully we'll have some calls. Now, if you've got a call Call in one way or another. Text doesn't have to be exactly on this subject. And we'll be back in about 6 minutes after the news and a few ads. This is Armed Alabama. Stay tuned for Hour 2.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of Armed Alabama. Glad you could join us and glad you could stick with us. But if you just joined us, this is a show about self-defense, firearm ammo selection, concealed carry, home protection, firearms training, range etiquette in Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida, and federal law. So glad you can tune in with us. We're on Thursday night. We're usually on Tuesday night, but we got kicked to Thursday night due to Auburn basketball game. So it's kind of neat to come in and be on a different night, got a different set of listeners, and we enjoy just kind of the change up. So glad you could join us tonight. And for our regular listeners, we appreciate you tuning in as well. You can check us out on our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5. And just go on our Facebook page and like us and follow. And just give us a little shout out on Facebook and let us know that you are watching us live. If you have any comments or questions, you can call in to the radio station here. That's 251-343-0106. And you can text us at the same line, 251-343-0106. We'll be glad to hear from you. Any comments or questions you may have regarding self-defense or ammo or firearm selection or anything regarding the law, your rights or liberty. And we enjoy hearing from you. Be sure also and check out our website, armedalabama.com, and it's a plethora of information regarding our radio show and your rights and, of course, concealed carry and so forth and so on. You can contact me or the judge as well, Adam at armedalabama.com and the judge at armedalabama.com. You can email us, and you can also ask us any question or comment that you may have, and we'll be glad to hear from you as well. You can also go to our YouTube channel, Armed Alabama, and you can watch all of our previous live broadcasts on our YouTube channel and lots of other videos that we have posted there. So not only like, but make sure that you follow or subscribe to our channel, and that way you'll get notifications when we post new videos. Also, if you can't listen to us over the regular airwaves, you can tune in on your smartphone to the TuneIn app and go to 106.5 on your TuneIn app, and you can catch us on there. Or you can listen to 106.5 live stream from our website anytime. So you can just go to our website, armedalabama.com, and you can listen to our show and then whatever programming is on 106.5 at that particular time that you tune in. But we're glad you could join us with us tonight. We want to give a shout out to Buck Allen, the local singer-songwriter, and that is his song that's become our theme song at the beginning of the show. And what better words, better
Don't
song,
tread
Joe,
on me,
to describe our show, and we appreciate
I got a patch that says "Don't tread on me" tonight.
And we appreciate Buck Allen for letting us use his song.
You want to get to one of those texts before we get to the call?
Yeah, we have several texts here. We also
y'all
have
hold on if you're on the phone. We want to read a text that we've kind of answered about 10 times, but we always have new listeners.
Absolutely. So we have a caller, a listener that has text no firearms sign on a building, and that building is the Singer Theater. And I think their text is this legal?
And it says no firearms allowed in building. You know, if they'd take that sign down, maybe they'd do more business and they wouldn't be in the red and need support all the time. I mean, my goodness, who would go to the Singer Theater without a firearm? That is of no effect. They're actually misstating. They're not saying it's a law, but they're saying no firearm. I don't know. Maybe it means there are no firearms in the building. Don't come burglarize us. I don't know. But the point is, Alabama law does not authorize those signs on private businesses. Let's start off first. Alabama Code Section 13A, 1152. Carrying a pistol on private property. Who may carry a pistol? except as otherwise provided by this article, no person shall carry a pistol, may carry a pistol about his person on private property, not his own or under his control, unless the person possesses a valid concealed weapons permit. All right, so that takes care of them. In the prior incarnation of that statute, I don't want to take a lot of time explaining it, a man was arrested for having a pistol at a bank, and they took the position, this is a bank. Well, there's no law that says you can't bring your pistol with your concealed carry permit in the bank. The code lists, I can't remember, it was 11 places, but I'll give you the code section, where you cannot, it's 13A-11-62.2.
And this is the code of Alabama. You can go on your computer, you can Google it on your phone, and you can find it. It's readily easy and available to look it up.
You put in Google, Code of Alabama 1975, hit the first one that comes up, and then find 13A-11-61.2. And it lists a number of places that you are forbidden to bring a firearm. And in some of them, it's without the person who is in control of the premises, like inside a police or sheriff's office, inside a prison, jail, etc. The only time a private business comes close is if you qualify, and there are not a lot of people that do qualify for this, and those go ABC, and it is let's see, B, and it is if you have if you have guards during the normal hours of operation, posting of guards during the normal hours of operation, and you have magnetometers, card keys, screening devices. You have to have something else besides the guard. So if you have a high security kind of building, even though you might be a private business, you do that kind of stuff, you can keep weapons out. But I don't think the Sanger Theater qualifies for that. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Thank you, Judge. And here's the next text we have, and this is a really good question, too, since we have Grant with us tonight. It says, "Hi, Judge." It said, "My question is, someone breaks in my home, and I fear for my life, but that individual is not armed, and I shoot, and that person may die. Are they or their family allowed to sue me even though they have broken into my home?"
Grant, I'll throw it to you. It didn't sound like he was threatened with physical force. He was
put that in his hypothetical, and it could make a difference. Now, I will say I practice at this point essentially almost entirely criminal law. I am not, what you can sue for. That's not.
I think if you do it according to the law, you have immunity from civil suit.
There is I was going to get there, Judge, and thank you. Yeah, there is immunity that is now.
And I hate to use that word immunity because that has connotations that.
Well, that's actually the word that's in the statute. And there was a case, Harrison v. State, that came out in December 2015, and talked about the immunity and how it applies in a criminal context. And I remember right, they referenced the civil immunity.
Why do Mr. Clock Keeper, Chronometer, he says time for a break, and this would be a good point to break, and then we'll finish this answer, and then we'll take our callers. Chuck and Mike, y'all hang on. We'll take you back when we get back from the break. Remember our number, 251-343-0106, and we'll be back after this short break with more of Armed Alabama. Truer words were never spoken. He better arm himself. Grant, you were in the middle of answering a question, and I'll let you finish up.
Yeah, back to after Harrison v. State, the code has actually been modified. Section 13A3-23. You go down and you read when it talks about the immunity. A person who uses force, including deadly force. Person who uses force, including deadly physical force, as justified and permitted in this section, is immune from criminal prosecution and civil action. So they did include the civil immunity when they redrafted the statute that refers to self-defense.
That is actually pretty good because, everybody's afraid of the California situation. The burglar comes in, he's stealing, he practically kills you, and, then they get sued. And that never happened here, but you still have that layer of protection. We have some calls coming in.
Yeah, we've got
them, Adam.
Phones are loaded. So we go to line 4. All right, Tony, welcome to Armed Alabama. Tony's calling from Chickasaw. What you got?
I wanted to follow up on that question about the Sanger Theater because the same thing happened to me. I got dropped off down there because I didn't want to deal with parking, and my child had bought tickets as a birthday gift for me. They were about $200, and when I got to go in, they wanted to search everything, and they would not let me take a pocket knife or my firearm in, and I do have a concealed carry permit. So it was either stand my ground about my firearm or lose $200 and mess up my child's night. What am I supposed to do in that situation?
And they were searching you?
They had a wand. They went through everyone's purse. Everyone had a bag. They went through it physically. They did have a wand. They were wanding everybody with. So I felt I had to, say what they were going to see in my purse anyway.
Yeah.
What I had. So I wasn't going to lie to them. But I do have a current concealed carry permit, and I was concealing it, and they would not let me. I had to call someone to come pick up my gun and my knife before they would let me in.
Listen, that is akin to having a sign on the door that says, no Hispanics allowed.
Yes.
They violated your rights under the Constitution. I'm not so sure you don't have a lawsuit against them now.
Well, my thought was, are you going to protect my child in here? Because I will. Somebody comes in with a gun, I'm going to protect my child. Are you going to? And they were, well, that's the rules. You need to come in or go home. And like I said,
they don't have a right to make
spent $200 on tickets. So
they don't have a right to make rules that are violative of state law or the Constitution. And, South Alabama's kind of been a problem. And drop me an email, the judge at Armed Alabama. I'm going to get some more details from you.
I will because, it's going to be the same thing the next time I'm going to be down there with 20 minutes to spare and, a lot of money on the line because I don't have that much money to throw around. It's going to be the same thing. So I certainly will. I want to tell you all about it. And, I've got a picture of that sign too. So I'll be glad to send it to you and see what we can get done.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for the call. Next caller we have is Mike calling from Mobile. Hi, Mike. Welcome to Armed Alabama.
Hey, good evening. Got a question to you. What about the idea that Trump, I heard, are they going to change the guidelines on who could buy pistols regarding people who had special disabilities like medical or mental issues? I read that today.
Yeah.
Is that what? I'm wondering what y'all's opinion of that is.
Well, they had Social Security had regulations, I understand it, or directive that anybody that had PS, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a few other issues that there's no scientific evidence that connects post-traumatic stress disorder with being more prone to shoot somebody with a gun. You got to have that basic finding before you can take away somebody's rights. But Social Security was reporting those to the states. They were basically, you were in a database and you wouldn't get approved to buy a gun. Those have been rescinded.
And this was put forward by the last administration, the previous administration.
Yeah. Yeah, they had changed that then. He was going to bring it back a little bit. I'd heard someone say, we talked about it before this ever happened, and they had mentioned that maybe that wouldn't happen in Saraland if the young person that the situation happened would not have been able to obtain a gun.
Well,
the young lady who was the police.
Oh yeah,
I'd heard someone. I was hearing it secondhand, thinking I didn't know that. I didn't know that the guy was questioning his mental stability.
Yeah, those, like I say, those covered. You had to be on, I say Social Security veterans who were receiving treatment through the veterans hospitals who had some diagnosis like post-traumatic stress disorder. I misspoke when I said Social Security, but it ought to be the same way. I've looked at this extensively, and people with mental health issues are actually, they're no more inclined to use a gun than, let's say, normal people. They're a little more prone to violence, but the violence is, let's say, standing in line at the grocery store because they have a lower threshold for stress, and they go berserk and start slapping people because they don't like waiting 30 minutes to check out.
But you think they should be allowed to buy a gun?
Yeah. I think until somebody can prove scientifically that somebody with whatever disorder they have is more of a danger than people who don't have this disorder, nobody's ever proven that you can't just take away somebody's constitutional rights. And that's what they did. Like I say, there's no evidence that somebody with, let's stay with PSTD, there's no evidence that somebody with PSTD or depression is more prone to violence with a gun than anyone else is. I
think people with depression may be more prone to themselves with violence.
Well, they may be.
I don't think anybody can argue that point.
They may be, but unless there's evidence to that, they shouldn't have their rights taken away either.
Well, there is evidence of that. People who are depressed sometimes do commit suicide.
Well, that's true, but there's not evidence that they are more prone to use a gun than regular people who are undiagnosed.
But I don't know if depression would be considered to be a mental illness.
Well, I think
I guess that would be the point, trying to figure out what is considered. But I can't see that would be a step forward for some people. Guidelines some people should be maybe critiqued a little bit before they could buy.
Well,
but
I agree with you.
I was just kidding. I was surprised when I saw that.
Well,
and I thought, I wonder what people in law enforcement think, or people who are closer to this than I am, what their opinions are.
We've got the critique now. If someone has been committed to a mental hospital and a judge, after a hearing, has ruled that they have a mental disorder, that they're a danger to themselves or to others, and they're forcibly committed to a mental hospital, then they can't own, carry, whatever, a gun. There's a possibility they can get those rights back later. But what you're talking about doing is just taking people's gun rights away without a hearing. And that's due process people are entitled to. But what Obama did is just blanket take away these people's gun rights when there's no evidence that they're any more dangerous than anyone else.
I got you.
Yeah, that's the concern.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
That's a good call. Good question. Let's go to Chuck, who's calling from Theodore. Hi, Chuck. Welcome to Armed Alabama.
Hey, how y'all doing tonight? Judge, I've had this on my mind for years. This happened to me some time back. I'll tell you how far back it was. Cottage Hill Road wasn't 4-lane past Hillcrest. And what had happened that night was that afternoon at work, we had some problems. Long story short, I got off about 2 o'clock the next morning. Time I showered, got in a truck, probably 30 miles an hour, spring of the year. Windows are rolled down. I'm just driving along somewhere about where Knollwood runs into Cottage Hill. And I'm in the inside lane on the 4-lane. I'm not out on the outside lane. I'm in the inside lane. There's nobody on the road. I'm driving along there. Probably had the radio on, just kind of wanting to get home and go to bed. And all of a sudden, this truck was up under. I could not see his headlights. He was so close to my bumper. I turned my blinker on. I went over in the right lane. He went by me like, it was a nice-looking truck, late model, went by me. And maybe I'm at fault here. I did not mean to cause a problem. I wasn't trying to do that. I thought he was far enough down the road because if you know where I'm talking about, the road kind of turns and dips down. I turned my lights back on bright because they were on bright. I dimmed them when he went by me. Anyway, when I got to the intersection of Hillcrest and Cottage Hill, just a little beyond that, he had parked his truck in the middle of the road, crossways, and he was out in the middle of the road trying to flag me down. The guy was dressed nice. Long story short, more like the Grizzly Adams type, the beard, the whole 9 yards. And he's trying to wave me down in the middle of the road. And I go out and go around him and go on. I speed up, and to back up just a minute, I had a legal
I need you to kind of
I am a veteran.
wrap it up.
I have used a weapon for something besides squirrel hunting, but the guy came after me, and I didn't know what to do. I did not want him to follow me home because I figured I don't want to do this. I knew where there was a log.
Why don't you do this? We need to go to a break. Hang on, and I want to talk to you during the break, too. So hang on. We got to go to a break, and we'll be back with the rest of the people's calls and yours with more of Armed Alabama in about 2 minutes or so. It smells like victory. The last caller, I'll briefly recap. This maniac kept chasing him. He got far enough ahead, and then he pulled off on a logging road that he knew was there. The guy that called in backed in there. Well, the maniac found him, but by the time our caller had parked and he had his firearm pointed, ready for the maniac, and the maniac saw it and backed off and left. And I just told him, number one, if I was doing it all again with no cell phones and all, of course that age is over, I'd stay in a public area because number one, first thing that hit me is it just seems, what are they doing back in the woods? But number two, if he was in fear for his life, imminent fear of his life, which it sounds like he was because he was still scared 25 years later.
Yeah.
That he had a right to pull that trigger. Now, fortunately, that he didn't.
Well, Judge, you have the objective test, and again, you go back to the Monday morning quarterback.
There you go.
And he put himself, his scenario, if true, you have self-defense.
Yeah.
But the problem is when the officers get there, you got two trucks in a area in the woods off the road, and you'll have
a drug deal gone bad.
You'll have a dead man with no weapon.
Yeah.
And so again,
and it just looks weird. Why are they back in the woods? I hate to say in these days it could be a sex thing. Who knows? So, by the way, if you can't get to a police station, it's a known fact many firemen carry. Get to a fire station, someplace like that. Occasionally we'd run into one of these kooks that would start following people. Fortunately, now with cell phones, it doesn't seem to happen as much. But somebody could be a threat to you, deadly force, with their car banging into you, and you've certainly got a real problem. You wouldn't have a chance to use a weapon if someone starts slamming into your car when you're driving. That's when you need the tire spikes, like some people have, I understand.
All right, Judge, we got a couple more callers here. Let's go ahead and go to Dan. Dan's calling from Mobile. Welcome to Armed Alabama. What you got?
Thank you, fellas. Good evening. I'd like two questions, if I may. One question is, are you ever justified in shooting a rapist while the rape is in progress, like aggravated rape? The second question is, if you feel threatened and a person has a knife, and let's say he's at a distance of 15 feet, I've seen police videos where a person with a knife can cover 21 feet before really a person can almost draw a gun. And I was just wondering, if you felt threatened and a person was threatening you with a knife at 15 feet, say, and you shot that person in self-defense, would you be justified in the Alabama court?
And I'm assuming he's coming at you. He's not running away from you or anything.
Correct. He's made, either threats with his verbally or actions as such that you feel that you're just about,
He's about to kill you.
Yes.
Yeah, good question.
I'll answer
good
the
question,
second,
Dan.
the knife, and Grant, I'll throw it to you about the rape. Someone can, as you said, travel 21 feet in a second and a half, so do my rough math.
We actually did that.
We've
timed it.
done it ourselves. So he's within a second of being able to kill you if he chooses to do it, and in your scenario, that's his intent. Sure, you're justified. Now, as to the rape, I believe there's a statute that specifically says if someone is, and that's one of the listed ones.
It goes back in self-defense, Section 13A-3-23 of the Alabama Code. The classic self-defense, the stand your ground, and the immunity is all in the same sections. It's difficult to read, but there are presumptions that are laid out And one of the presumptions when someone may use deadly physical force is when the other individual is committing or about to commit a kidnapping in any degree, assault in the first or second degree, burglary in any degree, robbery in any degree, forcible rape, or forcible sodomy. So there is a presumption that they have put in the statute to cover that type of situation. Again, there is no right answer. There's a best answer, and that it would be a situation based on all the facts where there could be justified
you're put in
force.
that awkward, is it really a forcible rape, or is your wife claiming it's a rape now because you got home early? It's really the boyfriend.
No, I mean, when you encounter something that is really forceful,
oh, yeah,
where
somebody
the
is
trying to fight
somebody's
them off and gouge
somebody's
them,
beaten
and
up.
they're overpowered.
Yeah, somebody's beaten up.
Yes.
They're obviously in distress. Yeah.
Yes.
But actually, the section does cover that.
Yeah.
It is covered.
Yeah, and to further clarify, Grant, is 13A 323, line 3.
Yes,
I've even seen recent instances around the country where a carried fellow, somebody had concealed carry, helped out a police officer who was being overpowered and actually shot the person, and he was exonerated.
We talked about that on the show, and I've actually played some of the video. Yeah, right.
Okay, thanks,
One of those
enjoy
things.
your show.
You just got to be careful who you're helping out. He knew it was a police officer, as opposed.
Domestics turn around.
Yeah, just got to know who you're helping out.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your phone call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we got one more caller here. Is Kevin's calling from Mobile. Welcome to Armed Alabama.
Hey, gentlemen, always enjoying the show. Yeah, I thought part of the caller earlier talking about, with the Second Amendment and basically who can and who can't, and if somebody's got post-traumatic, stress disorder, should they be able to, unless they have a serious mental deficiency right there, again, that's their right. But you can flip it like this. All of the quote, sane people, the crazy libtards that ever since Mr. Trump is now President Trump have been marching in the streets, destroying public property, inflicting harm on individuals. None of those people that we know of were carrying a weapon. So the judge can answer this. When they come in there, Judge, and they are destroying property, physically harming people with their person right there, can they not say, okay, what are you not going to have a gun? Is this person not going to have their hands now? Because they're physically harming them with their self.
Good point.
So, with the liberals right there, where does it end? That's the whole thing. They think guns don't kill people. People still kill people. A gun is just a way to help defend you and your family from possible harm. So we're never going to win the libtards. They're going to sit there and just try to berate all of us that respect the Constitution. But they have to think about that. If a person is coming towards you, your family, even without a gun, are we going to defend ourselves? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just with a firearm, you have a one-up, hopefully, over the person that's trying to harm you.
Well, that's right. And the problem is a lot of people will use these assumptions like, people with mental problems are dangerous. Most people with real mental problems, they can't even get out of the house. They can't even plan, some plot to go injure somebody. So, they're making assumptions that really aren't correct. You got to base it on evidence. You can't just assume things like that because most of the time it's incorrect. And you know what? A lot of people think liking guns like we do is a mental disorder in itself. They do.
One of our unalienable rights right there, which has been passed down from the creators of the Constitution of our great nation right there. So all we're doing is we are respecting the law.
Right.
We are respecting the law. So, I always give them the same courtesy right there. I said, it's your constitutional right to disagree with me. But as long as you don't inflict harm or anything off the wall, everybody's going to be happy. The problem is when they don't get their way, they're going to cry and scream like little 3-year-olds marching the street. But you cannot go out and destroy a man or woman's property right there just because you don't agree. That's the great thing about the Constitution. It gives you the right to disagree. But like I say, we're never going to win that argument with them right there. So, I always tell them, God bless them, and that makes them even more mad.
Yeah, you're right.
And those same limousine liberals will scoff at regular people, who carry firearms or or pro guns. But
why are you so paranoid?
But yet they will have armed security. You know,
exactly. Why do they have the biggest gates, the best security system, and they always have bodyguards with them? And I'm like, if you're really that scared, you know, or it's really that great, then fire those people, send them home, open, take your gates down. But they want to live in that double standard world right there. So again, we're not going to reason with them, so we just have to God bless.
You're right. You're right.
Yep.
No question about it.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your phone call.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
I actually have 4 scholarly studies here, all since, this one's 2009, about, is there a link between violence and mental disorders? And as I said, yeah, there is, but it's not gun violence. It's what I said before about, breaking windows and a frustration level, because a lot of people, their stress tolerance is not what ours is. And, to take away somebody's constitutional right because you think, something is this way, you got to give people due process. Okay, we'll get to Joe in just a second, but we need to talk about one of our sponsors, McCoy Outdoors. If you need a firearm, whether it be a shotgun, pistol, rifle, ammunition, whatever you need, McCoy's is the place to go. They don't just sell you a gun; they're a whole package. They'll help you fit a gun for you. You try, your hand grips. Oh yeah, you can go in there and say, "I know what I want. I wanted this," but most people aren't that sophisticated. They have questions, or they may have something preconceived in their head, like a ultra super light, bantamweight plastic revolver that's going to produce a lot of recoil, and they'll probably try to talk you into something a little heavier, explaining to you about the recoil. They're a great place, and they are located on Spring Hill Avenue in the old K&B Shopping Center, Spring Hill Avenue Plaza, and that is just west of where I-65 passes over it. Don't have just guns. They have sporting goods, clothes, best place to buy your running shoes, walking shoes, any of that. McCoy Outdoors, like them on Facebook, and you can also go to their website and check out their goods. They're great people. Tell them we said hello. And you can also, if you buy a firearm, get 15% off one of our classes. Joe, hang on. We're getting ready to go into a break, and I know you don't want 30 seconds. And we will step into this break, and we've got about 15 minutes or so left, 30 seconds left of the break. And anybody else, text in, or if you got a quick call, we can probably take one after Joe, but you got to hurry up and do that. But we'll go ahead and step into the break, and this is going to be a short one. Remember, 343-0106.
And check us out on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Facebook.
We're broadcasting Facebook Live, so go on our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5, and we'll catch you after the break. This is Armed Alabama.
All right, we got Joe on there, and Joe, are you there? Joe, somebody asked me.
I'm here. How you guys tonight? This is old Joe Abdullah.
Yeah, hey, Joe. Somebody asked me, they said, do you pay Joe to call? Because he is great. You got to make sure he calls at least, once every 3 or 4 shows. So don't give our secret away. What's up?
Yeah, I got a question for you. If a person that did his time in the penitentiary, in prison, nonviolent, get out, do you think he should have a right to vote, established back, or do you think he should have a right to bear arms?
Well,
can he purchase a weapon?
When you mean nonviolent, let's say a conviction for marijuana first. Let's put a deal on it. I think.
I'm just saying in general, if you did your time and you get out, should you have your voting right restored, or should you be allowed to carry a gun?
I have to pick between those two? I was going to say you can have both of them back as far as I'm concerned.
But is that the law now?
No, I'll tell you what the law is. It's fairly easy to get your right to vote back. It's very difficult to get your right to carry a firearm back. And I think somebody that has, unless he's done something, shot people with a firearm, let's say it's a marijuana case, he has a right at least an inalienable right, a human right, to defend himself as much as anybody else. And to deprive him of that, I think, is wrong.
So, Judge, why don't you explain to Joe and our listeners how they could do that? We talked about that before.
Yeah, but you can apply to get your voting right back fairly easy, and you can get it back fairly easy. You just get a form from the Pardon and Parole Office, Restoration of Voting Rights, and that's not a problem. To get your right...
I just know a lot of people I know, they've been trying to get their voting right restored, trying to get a weapon, a concealed weapon permit and all that. They hadn't been able to do it.
The concealed weapon, I believe...
You're a legal scholar, and maybe you have some insight on that.
The weapon is very difficult. The voting, you can get the voting back. Just I'd tell somebody to go for that first. It's fairly easy to do. The weapons is a lot of hoops to jump through, and I think, I personally, I've changed my mind on that over the years, but I've decided, why should somebody, you said nonviolent, let's think of somebody who embezzled money, I'll go a counterfeiter. Why should that person be deprived of the right to defend themselves or their family?
Yeah, so in other words, a crazy person could have their right to bear arms, but someone did their time and never hurt nobody. He can't have the right.
Yep. Well, you say,
good night.
Crazy is a matter of opinion, I guess. We're all a little crazy.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Good point, though. Thank you, Joe.
Grant, you got anything you want to add to that before we end the show?
And Alabama law is actually a little more reasonable. It's certain persons are prohibited. It's not a blanket felony. The problem is we're dealing with federal law, which is any felony conviction. So that's the problem. That's who we're dealing with.
I will say out in Montana it was a big deal regarding people who like to hunt.
Oh, yeah.
It really adversely affects you if you are a hunter, especially people who depend on it for food because of the federal law.
Now, say, take an embezzler, who may have never carried a gun before, and he's lives in an area now where it's dangerous because he was convicted in state court of a felony. The feds have decided you can't carry a gun, you can't own a gun, have one in your house unless your spouse has it all locked up and you never have access. That strikes me as kind of overkill.
We got a Facebook comment here. I want to bring it up. Grant, this is directed to you. If someone was stealing my yard furniture off my front porch,
that's a death penalty.
Burglarizing my property, what should I do? Do I have the right to pull the trigger while in my underwear out in my front yard?
Well,
it depends on boxers or briefs.
And that was Kevin, by the way. I'm not going to say his last name, but it starts with a W.
Should probably put some clothes on before you go ahead and confront the thief. But no, we kind of covered that earlier.
Do as I say, not what I do.
You cannot shoot someone for stealing your property. You cannot use lethal force. But if the situation changes because you're trying to get your property back and you do feel that your life is in danger, then you can take the appropriate steps. But it's it's a scenario that's not too uncomplicated. The first caller, right, with the cooler.
Yeah.
That was kind of his question. If I went outside and confronted somebody. But, put some clothes on first.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Well, the first, and you made the mistake. I tell people, don't leave your castle. Don't charge outside because you don't know what awaits you out there. You're safe inside and everything may be fine. And then you run out there and you've got, as I say, the Mexican meth gang out there, and you don't know what you're running into. And that's, I kind of know about the situation our texter's talking about. But to other people, there's the kind of the Southern manhood. My house has been violated. My rights have been violated. I'm going to make sure they're arrested at least. Well, if don't go out there. They know what they got, and they know what they think you have. Sun Tzu would tell you not to do that. He'd say, hold the high ground, call the police, and if they try to come back in, then you can use, whatever force is necessary to repel them. But but don't chase them out in the dark. That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. So you're the king of your castle. Stay there. Stay inside. Stay indoors. And, if anything, be a good witness.
Well,
when you do call law enforcement, be a good witness on, size, build, what direction they took off in, what were the items that were stolen, that kind of thing.
It's hard today to kind of remember, but you have most people have cell phones that have very good cameras, very good video, and start documenting.
Yep.
Get a good photograph, see what you can from a safe position. After all, if it's just property, it's property, So.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, as John Locke wrote.
Of course, I would go back and get my furniture, but that's that's me.
That's right. You were pursuing your property. That's all you were doing.
I'm just going through lots of texts tonight we hadn't even got to. So we may not have time to get through the rest of them, but we appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody commenting and giving a shout out on Facebook. Really enjoyed that, looking at everybody's comments.
I meant to ask the guy who was being chased, did you have an Auburn sticker on your truck or something?
That might have been what it was.
Chasing you so viciously.
So we're still getting comments about the incident that took place, the shooting took place on Cody Road. Hadn't heard anything more on that tonight. Of course, we
actually know all the inside story, and we'll tell you next Thursday night when we're on.
Yeah, so we'll be on again next Thursday, and then the following week we'll be back on our regular time at Tuesday, 6 p.m. But next week we'll be on Thursday, 6 to 8. So be sure and check us out next week, and also go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5. Like and follow us, and check us out on YouTube, Armed Alabama. Like and subscribe, and you'll be notified each time we load a new video. And we will load new videos there of our broadcast from our radio show, our Facebook broadcast. They will be on Facebook, so you can go on there and check us out. And check out our website, armedalabama.com, and you can go there. It's a good resource to find out some information. The judge got some really good content there. Also, you can go to and click on our Patreon account there, and you can contribute to the show. If you like the show, we would definitely like to hear from you and like for you to contribute to the show. So we appreciate that. It's really easy to do that on Patreon link from our website, armedalabama.com. If you have any questions between now and our next show, please give us a shout. Contact us at Adam at armedalabama.com or the judge at armedalabama.com. And we appreciate you listening. Judge, you have anything else?
We sure do. I will leave it with, well, that's too long to say. Y'all stick with us through all this Auburn rescheduling, and we really need some more ads. We're about at the time we got to renew, and we're kind of close to the line. If you patronize the store a lot, why aren't you advertising on Armed Alabama? It is the best deal going, surprisingly cheap, and just drop me a line. Just say these people might be interested, so we got somebody that can go out and see them now.
Yeah, we want to thank Grant Gibson for joining us tonight. He was the judge's former assistant DA.
Give me your website, because I love people just need to see it. It's Grant Gibson.
GrantGibsonLaw.com.
All right, and that's with a B, correct?
That's correct.
GIBSON.
All right, check us out next week. This is Armed Alabama.